Hi, you guys. I'm so tired, but I'm so excited to do this recap for Real Housewives of New York Season 14, Episode 5. In this video, I'm going to tell you what happened on the show with some insight of some behind-the-scenes stuff that I know. And then I'm also going to spill a little tea about Jessel. And I'm also going to tell you about, at the end of this video, Jenna LIEons' new love interest. Yes. All right, let's get started. So were any of you guys surprised that Jessel pulled off some big names at her event? She had a princess there, and she had some editors of big magazines and the editor of Vogue. Anyway, I wasn't. Why wasn't I? Well, because she was in Vogue for her wedding. Here you go. From 2016, Jessel Tank and Pavit Singh Randhawa's wedding in Mexico. Yeah. She worked at BWR, who reps all of the celebrities, and she left BWR to go with a lot of their power agents for a period of time. So, not surprised. Plus, she had a big charity event attached to it and a really gorgeous purse line that I'm sure had its own following of celebrities and editors, etc. Here's the purse line that she did. See the orb. Over $3,000, very pricey. Here's the fashion industry icon she had at her event. And it's not surprising to me that in the last 24 hours, Jessel has posted all of these big magazine articles and covers. She was on Vogue India. She's in Marie Claire. So she's really milking this for everything it's worth. But to be fair, she's the first Indian housewife, and she's trying to create a platform for other Indian beautiful women and businesswomen to come up. And that's awesome. So no, wasn't surprised. But what was surprising to me was Jessel's comment about Tribeca being up and coming, which was just complete nonsense. And actually, Brynn did say that correctly. Like, it was up and coming exactly when JFK Jr. with Carolyn Bessette, before she passed, and he passed in that horrible airplane accident. But I mean, it's definitely not up and coming. I'm like, what is she talking about? Anyway, again, we know that she's been primarily based in other places, and she came to New York for the show. And I actually think Erin Leachy is trying to out her on the show a little bit. Like, she keeps dropping hints in tonight's episode that Jessel is not really a New Yorker, and she's bang on correct. So I was like, ooh, Erin's pushing the boundaries a little bit, which was nice. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch my previous Real Housewives of New York's recaps. I've already called out that these women are not who they seem to be, some of them, and it's showing on the show in what they're saying. So we start the show and we're still at the end of Brynn's giving, and Brynn is finishing her very sad story about her childhood where she felt like she had to perform to be loved because parents weren't loving her, and it really left her with a huge vacuum, which might explain why she needs to be the center of attention all the time. And I think that's what the takeaway is. Now, she talks about a really sad story about her dad and how he left her, and he had gone to prison and been involved with drugs and all this, but eventually he gets in touch with her when she's a senior in high school. He's dying of liver cancer, and she's able to make amends with him, and she sees him at the hospital, and she forgives him, and she's like, what else was I supposed to do? And he said that he was a monster for what he did to her and regretted it greatly. It's at this event that Jessel invites all the women to a party that she's having for her very new, so new it was formed for the show, company. You remember this one, The No, with one post and 83 followers? For like 6 months it's been like this. That she started as a PR firm, and she invites everybody to come over to her house for this event on Thursday night that also is a charity fundraiser. Some of the women jump on board, others are reluctant, but essentially she puts it out there. The women try to call Jessel out for calling them cackling hags, And she doesn't seem phased. She just stays with it. She says, in England, that's just the way we are. We talk like this. It's sort of like, hi, how are you? It isn't an insult. But then Jessel very shadily adds the word old to the already kind of insult, which is like, oh, you cackling old hags. And that's how she kind of evolves it. The women are like, really? Or adding old to it. Anyway, the scene doesn't really go anywhere. No one gets outraged enough. It just sort of sits flat. And we get the feeling that that is because the women are kind of acting in this scene. Like they're trying to argue about something and they don't really have anything. So they're sort of like, I don't know, they're not feeling it. So then we jump to Sai, and she's got 2 girls who work for her that help her with her business. She is an influencer. She's showing off all of these fashion brands that she is supposedly getting to promote as part of her influencer stuff and her blog site. I don't know how much of that was real. It's really hard to tell. Is she really getting sent Fendi purses for free to put on her blog site? I probably doubt that a lot. But a little of it might be true. So some other brands might give her stuff, or they might lend her stuff to do stuff for her blog site. But it kind of made me think like, this is exaggerated, this scene. But needless to say, I loved the fantasy of it all. And I was like, oh, let me dream to be Sai if this was really true, which I don't think it is, but it's okay. It's still fun to fantasize about that. And I do like when they put some of the inspirational stuff in the show that isn't necessarily real, but fun to think about. That said, I'm sure Sai's doing 6 figures with her business, no doubt. It's very easy to bring in at her level, like $300,000. You add the show to it, she's doing okay. So, I mean, I'm not trying to say that she isn't. I want to be clear, because I did follow her for a long time before she went on the show, so I could see what she really was all about. Anyway, underlying all this crap is that Jessel and Erin are not really hitting it off. And Jessel seems to want to keep moving forward away from the Hamptons, but Erin's holding on to what went down there, because Jessel, I guess the whole time she was in the Hamptons, was like bitching that things weren't good enough and she was miserable and she didn't want to be there, and she kept saying it over and over and over again. And so the women got this feeling like, well, why the hell are you here? Why are you on this show? I mean, they don't say that, but that's what they're thinking. And like, why are you such a pain in the ass and a snob? And I think they sense that she's a faker, which she is. She's an imposter. She's not who she's pretending to be. So I think they're all kind of like turning on that a little bit. So Jessel decides to go to lunch or coffee or some shit in Tribeca with Erin. They meet up at this restaurant-y cafe thing. Erin's like, this is my spot I love to be in, because she's kind of this laid-back vibe, right? That's her thing, this sort of laid-back Hamptons, New Yorker thing. And Jessel's all made up in full makeup, and it was really odd, like at 5 o'clock to be in full makeup. She calls it out. She's obviously feeling a little bit uncomfortable about being so dressed up compared to Erin for this scene. Anyway, they start talking, and they're not really hitting it off, and Erin is basically trying to get Jessel to let her guard down and be like a little bit like who she really is. And Jessel's holding on to this identity for dear life, which is that I'm a fashion publicist. And Erin calls her out, like sort of in her lie by saying like, you haven't really been practicing your publicity. And then she's like, well, like just because I stopped for a minute doesn't mean I'm not still doing it. And I know, we all know why Erin's saying that, because she did stop doing it. Like, and then she started back up again for the show. But Erin's like trying to not break the fourth wall. So there's this like really uncomfortable conversation that's occurring. And then Erin tries to tiptoe around like, you're really a snob. And so damn judgmental, and Jessel won't give in to it. So she's just like, are you trying to call me a princess? And then she makes it about women not supporting women, and Erin's like, I'm not letting you do that, lady. And so that's where it goes. Brynn meets up with Sai for chess. Brynn likes chess. She really does. Actually, that is one of her hobbies in real life. And she's also big into charity stuff, which we're going to see, I'm sure, soon, with kids and immigration and all of this. And she's very good like that. She's very good with kids. You can see it on the show. I don't think that's made up. I think Brynn is very childlike, and she should definitely, I'm so glad she's DMing Shep from Southern Charm. That's a good couple to like Peter Pan people. The lunch goes really wrong. It does, like, no fight happens, but they're just not jiving. And so both of them sort of awkwardly get up from the coffee or whatever it is and leave. And it's just really strange. And we find ourselves at Jessel's fashion night, and her husband is drinking champagne with a carrot in it. And he makes a joke like, I thought this was a way I could make it healthy. And Jessel's embarrassed by the joke and how dorky he seems to be. And she's trying to be like this high fashion publicist and try to have this air about her. Anyway, that's it. We see that communication, which is kind of awful because we know she's not having sex with her husband on top of it all. And her children are running around and they're really cute, and all the big wig fashion people come, and Brynn is really being funny. She's drunk and she's saying all these outrageous things, and they are really funny. I have to give it. Brynn was funny in the episode tonight. She had a few whoppers. Uba shows up late, but does show up and shows her support. And Sai was there from the very beginning because Sai wanted to have a talk with Jessel, because she was like, you need to just let things roll off, take some accountability, and don't think that someone calling you a princess is really a diss. It's not. You know, she said, and she says to her, I think you come off like you're from old money. So, like, why are you going against that identity? And then Jessel tries to play it off like she's an immigrant and doesn't understand this princess old money concept. But, I mean, did you see her wedding pictures? If you guys are in the Patreon, search their last names in the search engine, and I did deep dives on all the women. Well, someone who noticeably doesn't show is Jenna like LIEons, and that's a nickname Brynn comes up with. And that is because Jenna tries to make an excuse that she's hosting an event at her house, and that event turns out just being with her son and her 2 godchildren and decorating the tree. And the women feel like she was fudging things a little bit to get out of going to Jessel's party, and should have just said, look, I'm spending time with my family, I can't go. But instead try to kind of lie about it. And so that's the women where they're coming from with the LIEons thing. Jessel doesn't seem that upset about it, but they're probably going to make a big deal out of it. Meanwhile, Jenna LIEons was really delightful in this episode. We see a woman, I don't think this is the woman she's dating, maybe she is, but we find out in next week's episode that she's broken up with her lover. So that's over anyway, but we do meet a woman who might have been the lover, who's very high fashion, and she's brought into this storage unit that Jenna has in her building, and the storage unit is sick for New York. And she has all these clothes and shoes and just gorgeous clothing and designer everything. And she's like, what can I sell? And what should I keep? And what's the maybe pile? And she goes through everything with her friend, and we get to see some of her stuff, and it's really fun. Great scene. And then also we get to see a jacket that Jenna made while she was at Parsons for one of her assignments. And it's gorgeous. She's so talented, and that's really what comes across. And it's really a fun scene. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And Jenna has the right attitude about her stuff. She cleverly has framed her ostentatious life with tying it to her design roots. And it's so smart how she did it, because it allows her to be so high fashion and so in your face with her fashion, but at the same time not come off as pretentious. Even though we know she kind of is, it doesn't come off that way because she sort of associates it to her job and like part of what she does. And so it's really smart. This is Jenna's new girlfriend, Cass Bird. This is her on holiday with her. Cass Bird is a famous photographer. She works for Vogue and also major brands, like she's worked on Nike, etc. She also does a lot of photography for famous people like Hailey Bieber and Margot Robbie. So she's a very, very successful photographer. She has 2 children from her previous relationship with a woman who was also her partner in her photography business. She's from California. She went to Smith College in Massachusetts, and then she moved to New York. So there you have it. Jenna LIEons has complex love life, though. Very complex, but that's for another video. All right, I think I'll leave it there for tonight. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow, maybe.